The chilling stories involving Ubers and their mysterious passengers have almost become urban legends. Many recount inexplicable encounters, tense experiences, and even situations with supernatural undertones. Let's dive into these eerie accounts, beginning with a truly spine-tingling tale. Jess, an Uber driver in San Antonio, Texas, saw his usual night routine take an unexpected turn one Friday. It was a calm evening with little traffic as he waited for passengers at a strategic spot where he often transported Navy servicemen. On one such night, Jess received a request from a passenger in a military uniform who entered the car and quickly provided the destination. The man was tall and serious, and Jess noticed nothing unusual. But soon, the night would take an unsettling turn. During the trip, the passenger asked for a brief stop at a gas station, saying he needed to use the restroom. Jess, professional as always, parked and waited patiently. Time passed, and as the station began to close, Jess found the delay odd and started to worry. He thought perhaps the passenger had fallen ill or encountered a problem in the restroom. That's when Jess noticed that the station was practically closed. Growing impatient, he decided to speak to the attendant to check if his passenger was all right. What Jess heard next made his skin crawl. The station attendant assured him there was no one in the restroom, nor had anyone exited Jess's car when he arrived. The attendant said he'd observed the Uber pull up, and at no time had anyone stepped out of the vehicle. Jess was incredulous he had seen, spoken with, and transported that man in uniform. Could it be possible that he had given a ghost a ride? The impact of this experience haunted Jess for days. He began questioning whether his mind was playing tricks on him, yet he was sure of what he'd seen and felt. This story circulated among Uber drivers, leaving many wary of certain rides. But Jess's case was not unique. Mysterious situations like this are more common than one might think. In another account, a young woman named Carla frequently used Uber to get home after work. On one of those nights, she noticed something strange. Upon entering the car, she saw that the driver's GPS was set to a completely different destination than the one she had input into the app. She assumed it was an error and tried to correct it, but the driver seemed insistent on following the wrong route. Carla began to feel nervous as the driver ignored her instructions. When Carla finally asked to get out, the driver stopped in an unfamiliar location and gave her a disturbing look. She managed to exit the car quickly and ran to a nearby diner, where she called the police. Mysteriously, the driver disappeared before authorities arrived. Carla never saw the man again and never uncovered who he truly was. After that, she was always cautious when using Uber, double-checking the information before every ride. Anna had called an Uber to get home after a meeting. She was tired, and the journey seemed normal. During the ride, the driver was cordial, keeping the conversation light and even offering her a bottle of water and candies. Everything seemed aimed at making the trip pleasant, but Anna noticed something unusual. The driver commented at each stop or turn that he liked to receive good ratings, subtly hinting that female passengers often praised his impeccable service and left him 5 stars. When they arrived at her destination, Anna thanked him and started to open the door to get out. At that moment, the driver asked, "You're going to give me 5 stars, right?" Anna, a bit taken aback, replied that she would, but only once she was out of the car. She grabbed her bag and was preparing to leave when she noticed that the doors were locked. The click of the lock echoed through the car, instantly shifting the atmosphere to one of tension. The driver smiled and repeated, this time more seriously, "You're going to give me 5 stars, right?" Anna laughed nervously, thinking it might be a joke, but she quickly realized he wasn't joking. She tried to open the door again, but it was truly locked. The tension mounted with each passing second. She began to question the reason for the lock, saying there was no need for this kind of pressure. But the driver insisted. He explained that he worked long hours and that 5-star ratings were essential to keep his job and avoid issues with the platform. Minutes passed, and Anna began to sweat, growing increasingly anxious. On edge, she grabbed her phone and threatened to report him. The driver, who initially seemed calm, changed his expression and responded firmly, "Look, Just give me 5 stars, and everything will be fine. I just need this favor." It became clear that he would only let her out if she rated the ride right then and there. Pressured, Anna opened the app and rated the ride. But when she attempted to give less than 5 stars, the driver noticed and immediately locked the doors even tighter. "5 stars or nothing," he said, pointing to her phone. Feeling increasingly uncomfortable and with no other option, Anna clicked on the 5 stars. Only then did the driver unlock the doors and say with a smile, "Now that's better. Have a good night." She stepped out of the car in shock, unable to believe what had just happened. Later, Anna reported the incident to Uber's customer service. In her complaint, she detailed every aspect of the psychological pressure and confinement. The company investigated the case, and the driver ultimately lost his license. But this situation left Anna constantly alert. She had never imagined that a simple ride could turn into a nightmare just because of a rating. This episode sparked a debate among users about how far some drivers might go for 5 stars. Many people began sharing similar stories of pressure, with drivers demanding perfect ratings and even hinting that they wouldn't release passengers without a good score. The need for a high rating is well known among drivers, as the app's system requires a high average to stay active on the platform. Since then, Anna's story has circulated as a reminder that the obsession with 5 stars can turn even a peaceful ride into an experience of fear and pressure. Many passengers reported feeling compelled to give 5 stars even in rides that weren't satisfactory, just to avoid issues or similar situations. Anna's story became a cautionary tale for drivers and passengers alike. 3 friends in Sacramento decided to call an Uber to get home after a long night of fun. It was late, the city was quiet, and the Uber arrived quickly. The driver seemed ordinary, almost too quiet, but they didn't mind. They just wanted to get home. At first, everything seemed normal. They chatted among themselves, laughing about the night's events. The driver, however, remained silent, focused on the road, his gaze fixed and expression serious. When the car entered the highway, the speed began to increase, and that's when the friends started to feel something was wrong. The driver ignored the route suggested by the GPS and kept accelerating. They noticed the detour and alerted the driver, but he continued to ignore them. The car picked up speed as he appeared even more fixated on driving, completely disregarding their pleas. The tension mounted with every mile and every turn. When one of them asked him to slow down, the driver finally broke his silence, but in a terrifying way, he started yelling that they were all going to die that night. The friends exchanged glances, realizing they were trapped with no one around to help. In panic, one of the friends attempted to grab her phone to call for help, but the driver noticed the movement and slapped her hand, causing the phone to drop to the car floor. He looked in the rearview mirror, casting a look that was a blend of rage and despair, a gaze empty of empathy. The friends fell silent, and the atmosphere inside the car grew heavy and suffocating. Desperation began to set in. The car sped down the highway, and each time he shouted, it became clearer they were in danger. They tried to stay calm, but the anguish was overwhelming. Then, one of the friends in the back seat managed to grab her phone discreetly. With trembling hands, she quickly typed out a message asking for help and, with some luck, was able to make a silent call to the police. As the car continued on its reckless path, the friends tried to hide their panic, pretending not to notice what their friend was doing on her phone. Once the call connected, the police received their distress signal and began tracking the location. Within minutes, authorities were on their way, but the friends still needed to buy time to stay safe until help arrived. Finally, as they approached a traffic light, the car came to a stop, and the friends saw their chance. Without hesitation, they unlocked the doors and bolted out, leaving the driver behind. They found refuge at a nearby gas station, catching the attention of employees who quickly called for additional help. Still shaking and in shock, they recounted everything to the police. But the driver, upon realizing they had escaped, sped off into the night, disappearing without a trace. The next day, something even stranger occurred. One of the friends noticed a car parked outside her house. Looking out the window, She recognized it as the same vehicle from the previous night, and the same driver was there, watching her home from afar. She rushed to the door, but by the time she got there, he was already gone. The fear returned, and they decided to contact Uber immediately to report the incident. After filing the report, what they discovered was even more unsettling. The driver wasn't supposed to be working that night. He had been terminated from the company weeks before. This made everything even more sinister. How had he accessed the app to accept the ride? And what were his real intentions that night? The company promised to investigate, but no answers ever came, leaving the mystery unsolved. After a lively night out, Alex decided to order an Uber to get home. While waiting for the car, he opened Tinder to pass the time. Among the profiles, he matched with a woman named Alicia. She seemed friendly, attractive, and within minutes, they were chatting easily and casually. Alicia then invited him to her house that very night, just what Alex needed to end the night on a high note. When the Uber arrived, Alex got in, excited, and eagerly told the driver about the lucky night he was about to have. The driver smiled subtly, but there was a hint of hesitation in his expression. Immersed in the thrill of the encounter, Alex didn't notice. They chatted along the way, and Alex mentioned the address he was heading to. However, as they neared the location, the driver's expression changed dramatically. Without ceremony, the driver looked at Alex and asked if he was sure about the destination. Alex laughed and replied yes, thinking the driver was just being cautious. But the driver wasn't simply curious. He looked serious and then revealed something that made Alex's heart skip a beat. He knew that house. In fact, he had taken a passenger to the same address a few weeks earlier, and the story hadn't ended well. According to the driver, that passenger was also going to meet someone he'd met online. He arrived alone at the location, but, as the driver recounted, he was never seen again. A few weeks later, shocking news broke. The body of a man had been found in the house, under brutal circumstances. The victim had been tortured before his life ended, and the police were still investigating the case. The driver's account left Alex shaken. Despite his fear, Alex tried to remain calm. Maybe the driver was exaggerating. Maybe it was just a story to scare him. But when the car stopped in front of the house, everything felt even stranger. The house was completely dark, with broken windows and the garden overgrown with weeds. There were no lights, no signs of life. The address Alicia had sent him looked abandoned. As Alex stepped out of the car, he hesitated. Something inside him urged him to stay in the car, but curiosity pulled him toward the house. He walked slowly to the entrance, calling out for Alicia. There was no response. Deciding to take a closer look, he peered through a dusty window to see if he could spot anything inside. As he pressed his face against the glass, he saw a shadow moving within the house. A solitary figure, drifting slowly from room to room. His heart raced, and he began to back away, trying to make sense of what he was seeing. Just then, Alex's phone rang. The caller ID showed an unknown number, but, still riding the thrill of the night, he answered without hesitation. The voice on the other end was cold, low, and oddly familiar. It was the driver he had circled the block and returned, concerned. "Get back in the car now. Leave as fast as you can." Terrified, Alex didn't question him. He sprinted to the Uber and jumped inside, slamming the door shut. The driver hit the gas, speeding away from the desolate street. Along the way, Alex, still in shock, tried to make sense of what had happened. He told the driver about the shadow he'd seen in the window and how the house looked abandoned. The driver then confessed that, during the previous passenger's encounter, he too had noticed someone watching from the window that same night. Alex asked if he thought the person in the house was Alicia, the same woman he'd chatted with on Tinder. The driver, with a serious look, replied that Alicia could be just a name, a disguise. He explained that many online meetups end tragically, and that place felt like a carefully laid trap. It all made sense now to Alex. He had been lured to a dangerous spot, and the driver's warning had probably saved his life. On the way home, Alex decided to open Tinder to check if Alicia was still online. but her profile had completely vanished. No photos, no messages, nothing. It was as if she had never existed. Gripped by fear and confusion, he finally arrived home, thanked the driver, and locked himself inside, still processing what had happened. The next morning, Alex tried to share the story with a few friends, but no one fully believed him. They thought he was exaggerating, that he had probably fallen victim to a prank, or that the driver had embellished the details just to scare him. But Alex knew it wasn't a coincidence. The shadow in the window, the driver's call, and the abandoned house painted a story that was all too real and terrifying.